So I want to start talking about your experiences on how you've built your personal brand using these platforms. Melinda, what are the strategies that you can provide for people who are looking to build a personal brand on social media?
Well, the first thing I can say is that you have to know where your fish are, right? I think the biggest challenge that I see people have is that they own 5, 6 platforms. I built $1 million brand from one platform, and it was Twitter. So for me, what I want people to do is focus on only 1 or 2 social media platforms, because once you dominate those, then you can fan out. But unless you sell social media services, you really only need to be on 1 or 2, and they should be where your target customer spends most of their time online.
Yeah. And I know, Chad, you have a heavy LinkedIn following. And so how have you used LinkedIn to build your personal brand?
Yeah, so it's funny you asked me that because I just did an executive LinkedIn group where a bunch of founders got together, and we had some coaches that have my following on LinkedIn times 100 and came in and taught us their techniques. And what I can say is, when it comes to LinkedIn, it's okay to write a long post, but the key when you write a post on LinkedIn is to break it up. You don't want to go more than 3 sentences deep on a post on LinkedIn, because the average user or the average reader tunes out because they're skimmers. So the more you can put lists, bulleted lists, numbered lists, so on and so forth, the more your content will be consumed. So that's the advice I'd give on LinkedIn.
And so you're saying that you've created a lot of content, put it out on LinkedIn, and your tactic when doing so is to keep it short and simple because people are skimming. I assume they're professionals, they're busy. So is that your rationale there?
Yeah. And you said short. I won't go so far as to say short because I post long a lot of times. But what I do is I break that content up, and I don't go more than 3 layers deep. When I say layers, I mean 3 lines deep. I don't go more than 3.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's great. And when you think about, just the algorithms and how you can get more organic reach, we've noticed too, if you position your caption to exceed the visible area where users have to click see more, it actually is considered an engagement, which can certainly help with your organic reach. The algorithms thinks that people are interested, so you click on that see more. So what we try to do is focus, when we're dealing with clients, focus on having them click on that see more, have an enticing first line so that action can be taken, right? So I'm sure you're leveraging that as you continue to build your digital brand. So sorry?
I was just going to say, you said it better than I could. That's exactly right.
Awesome. So we talked about, Melinda, you built, like you said, your $1 million small biz lady brand off of Twitter. Chad, you've taken your inroads into LinkedIn and developed your brand there. Glenna, I see you on Instagram. How are you using Instagram to build and promote your brand in the mental health space?
So I come from a place, again, I'm a social worker through and through, and no one talks to us about business, branding, marketing, advertising. When I started my practice, I thought those words were synonymous. So no one talks to us about any of this. When I started my practice, I was poor and I did not have any money to invest in anything. And I just started posting on social media because they were readily accessible. I didn't start with a strategy. I didn't understand algorithms. And to be very honest, it was touchy because I work in a field where confidentiality is paramount. And I have to be very careful about how I disseminate information because I am a therapist, but I'm not your therapist. And so I learned a lot of what I know by trial and error, not too much error because, I have a license and I'm not trying to lose it over making silly social media mistakes. But it started with me basically saying, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to do something. And then I started to realize what was working and what wasn't working. And over the course of me starting my business, I went back to school and I didn't have the bandwidth to post on a regular basis. So I would go in the studio and I would batch record 1 minute videos. And that became a big part of my brand because it allowed people to meet me. It allowed people to have a conversation with me, even though I wasn't actually conversing directly with them. And I realized that visually, people being able to meet the therapist before they're sitting in the therapist's office carried a lot of value. And so that is how I ended up leaning really heavily into Instagram and Facebook because it's visual. And I've just learned that that works really well for me and for my business overall.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think going to therapy is a very, you can say, maybe vulnerable experience. And if you are going to go into a vulnerable situation with someone, you want to know a little bit more about them, see if they can relate to whatever is challenging you. And so I think that's great. I think it's Instagram and all the other social networks are just a great way to get people to know you. If they know, like, and trust you, then they're going to absolutely choose you as a therapist. Melinda, you mentioned earlier about building this brand on Twitter. Twitter's changed, right?
Yeah.
Twitter changed. And so I remember connecting with you way back in the day as well, when it actually was Twitter, not X. How are you dealing with that transition? Have you seen any change in audiences, impact on algorithms?
Yeah, it's a shame what Elon Musk has done to Twitter. My first social media love. I don't even enjoy Twitter anymore like I used to. My primary platform these days actually is LinkedIn. And so for me, we still post on on Twitter because it's actually where my biggest social media audience is. We have over 300,000 followers over on Twitter, but when people take it over, when evil dictators run anything, it doesn't work like it used to. So it's still my go-to if something like urgent's going on and I want to kind of find out what's going on. But I get a lot more traction and a lot more love over on LinkedIn. And then after LinkedIn, Instagram would be my third platform that we look at. And I mean, I have verified checks on all these platforms too. So it's hard to just like walk away. I mean, I hate to say it, but it was like, it's just nothing's as good as the first time, right? So, I mean, and Twitter that's 100% true for Twitter. And I don't know that people could build a brand like I built on Twitter anymore either. I think there's so many people creating content. There's so many people out here trying to become a brand, trying to become an influencer. It's like, if you just focused on serving your customer and not trying to be famous, you would get there a lot faster. The world is still waiting on great content. And if you think you're going to go into AI and write all your content, that's not going to work for you either because everybody's content's going to sound just alike. You really, I mean, I wrote all my books and my 5,000 articles on my blog before AI. I'm a bit of a AI snob in that way, but I mean, don't get me wrong. I use AI every day for different things in my business, but I'm not using it to write books or create signature content because you cannot copyright things out of AI, which people don't.
Listen, I hear you. I'm somewhat of a purist, especially people who know me and follow me. I used to be a DJ, and back in the day when I actually had vinyl, and now you have all these DJs using their computers and things like that. And so I can be somewhat of a snob too in that sense. So I totally understand what you're saying. Right. But you mentioned earlier that you have pretty much certified checks across all your social platforms. Mm-hmm. I know the process has changed a little bit. What was your process of getting those certified checks?
Well, I got them the old fashioned way before you could pay for them. I got them just from being a good steward, sharing content, answering people's questions. What people don't realize is that how I even became the small biz lady was because when I first got on Twitter in 2008, my name, Melinda Emerson, was taken and I had to come up with a nickname. And so a friend of mine at the time was like, well, let's come up with a nickname for you. And I was like, you mean like Mindy or Melly Mel or something, and she said, "No, fool, you're not a rapper. I'm not trying to give you a name like that." He said, "Let's come up with a name that tells people who you are and what you do." And that was the day I became Small Biz Lady, which we now know was like the best branding accent that ever could have possibly happened to me. But it took about 2 years. Like, I tweeted, I answered people's questions, I shared personal anecdotes about myself every day, like 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Like, it was a job to build my brand, like before anybody really started paying attention to me. And it really took about 22 months to do it. So it was not like I sent one tweet and that changed my life. That is not what happened. And I became a trusted member of the community. I mean, I tweeted for a year before I ever tried to sell anybody anything. I just shared good, helpful information. And what I learned was that when you give, you get. So when my book did finally come out, my book, Become Your Own Boss in 12 Months, people were all over me. How can I help you? Can I review it on my blog? Can I, and so you don't get a small business nonfiction book in print for 14 years with Simon & Schuster selling 100,000 copies if you haven't earned the right, if you haven't put in the work so that people trust you, they know that you have a viewpoint, have something valuable to say, have always helped people. So I think that you've got to put the time in. And like, know, and trust is true in person as well as it is online. And it's even harder online because there's so many, scammers, and now we have deep fakes and all this other business. But I think that you got to really put in the work. I talk about the 6 C's of social media marketing. The first thing you got to do is connect. Then you have to communicate. You have to communicate with quality content, and you have to do that consistently. And once you do that, you become a trusted member of the community. And once you build trust, that's how you can turn that relationship into commerce. And if you try to do those things out of order, you're going to get messed up. People are going to see that you're just about transaction, right? That you're not really about the people, that you don't have a heart for the people. People can tell.
You can see through it.
If you're just trying to get likes or you're just trying to get followers, people can tell. And nowadays, it's not even about that anyway. It's about engagement. So now micro influencers that only have 1,000 to 10,000 followers are actually more relevant than these people out here that done bought and did whatever they had to do to get 1 million followers, because we know some of that stuff ain't real, right? So I think that it's interesting that the paradigm has shifted from the mega influencer to the micros, and the micros are out here getting paid because their people read their stuff, their people open new stuff, their people click to buy, right? And so I think that that's how the game has changed, I think, significantly.
For sure. And I remember following you for a long time. I first got on Twitter 2012, I believe it was, and I thought I was extremely late. I after a while of putting out content and connecting with people, I put in for my verification check, never got it. But for some weird reason, I guess after Elon took over, I just had a verification check.
Well, and let me say this, that whole verification stuff has always been like voodoo, kabuki stuff. Like how I got all of my check marks was, it's like, because one day somebody emailed me and said, we need to verify your name and your cell phone number. Okay. And next thing you know, it's like, you've now been verified on Twitter. Like, I can't tell you what I did. I mean, people ask me this all the time. How you get a verified check on Instagram? How you get I got more followers than you and I don't have no verified check. I was like, listen, boo, I don't know, because I don't know how these things, there's no application. It's a don't call us, we call you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I got verified other than I use the stuff. I share, I give people information, and I've done it consistently for years. And
I see
I got my check on Twitter kind of early, but other ones, I've gotten like the last 3 or 4 years.
I'd like to jump in and talk about what Melinda's talking about. You're awesome, first of all.
I feel like there's a but coming.
No, but. No,
Go ahead, give it to me.
No, but.
Give it to me, Chad.
We both joined Twitter at the same time, 2008.
Okay.
I did get my check mark, and I didn't do anything to get it. at the time I had, I don't know, like 40, 48,000 followers, I think, when they gave me the check. And then Elon Musk bought it and my check went away. And then all of a sudden I had 26,000 followers. So I don't know what happened. I'm assuming a lot of bots were following me, but that was crazy to me. And just like
Yeah.
what you said,
Yeah.
it's not you call them, they call you.
No, it's definitely they call you. And I didn't lose my check, but I'm not paying for nobody's check. I tell you that. I don't care that much. Like, it's like, if you want to take it from me, take it, boo.
That's
I
what
don't
I did.
care, you know.
I did it.
I mean, first of all, email is more trackable than social media is all day, any day, anyway. So the whole point of using social media is to drive traffic back to your website. And if that's not how you're using it, shame on you. You're not doing it right. So,
Like they say, never build property on rented land, right?
that's it.
Because
That
they
is
can
it.
yank that all your audience. And trust me, I know colleagues, clients, personal friends that have lost their accounts that they've worked so hard to build.
Oh, all the
It's
hacking.
sad.
And
It's
then
sad.
look at all these people that done built they stuff on TikTok. Look, TikTok is going away. They are about to ban TikTok in America. Play with the U.S. government. Listen, like,
Right.
you know, all these people that I got 1 million followers on TikTok. I hope you do, because I hope you got the people's email addresses, because you about to not have access to TikTok.
It's hard. I mean, it can literally be detrimental to your personal brand and the way in which you engage with your audience. Because look, we're all trying to obviously listening here to try to build our personal brands and really get some good insight on how we all have built our brands. And just like, you know, Melinda, you used Twitter heavily, especially in the beginning. Chad with you and with LinkedIn, Glenna with you with with Instagram. I remember building my personal brand off of blogging. And then I joined Twitter to promote the blog, right? I see Chad, I see you
Oh,
raising
yeah.
your hand here.
No, mine
And-
was the same way. My blog was the secret sauce to the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
and what was interesting for me is during grad school, I know Glenna also was somewhat in the same light where you're trying to go through grad school, also establish yourself on social media. And sometimes there's obviously a disconnect, especially I'm sure with your field. And we're definitely going to get into that. With me through grad school and in my MBA program, I essentially put all of my assignments as blog posts on the
Nice.
blog. And that was one way I was able to obviously multitask, but I would change the format of the assignments that were submitted, and I would even somewhat sacrifice a couple points because it may be too conversational, but you know what? I wanted to put it on my blog. And so that's how I was able to build the following at Digital Branding Institute, by just simply putting those assignments on my blog, right? And I was able to build a following, and from that came more Twitter followers, Instagram, so on and so forth. And my personal brand was built based
Nice.
upon that
Nice.
activation. So yeah, that's how I built mine. And I'm sure, you know, you guys have similar stories. Glenna, when you were in grad school, building your brand, what was that experience like for you?
I was incredibly busy. I had my practice. I was trying to build it while I was flying it. I had a handful of people in it. I was in this online doctorate program at USC where we still had to meet periodically live. My kids were like 2 and 4 when I started. That's when I started drinking coffee, because I was like, I don't even know how I'm getting anything done. And I tried to just keep up with the content, but you know, your brain only has so much capacity. I could only think of so many things. And I had a friend that owned a recording studio, and she was very gracious. And I would go in the recording studio and record about 13 1-minute videos. And I would change my lipstick, my earrings, and my jacket so that, you know, we could keep switching it out, put red lipstick, pink lipstick, black jacket, brown jacket, pull the hair back, pull it up, you know. And then we would drip it over the semester. I was trying to make content at the beginning of the semester to get me through the rest of the semester. And those videos became part of my signature brand, because that's where I learned. I learned how to be on camera. I learned how to be very concise. I learned how to say, hi, I'm Dr. Glenna. Therapy is a lifestyle. I learned how to get my brand, my tagline out there. And I became known as like the therapist with the quick videos. the therapists with the, the 1 minute hack. And then we would do them on Wednesdays and we would build content around them for Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday. And that got me through each semester to the point where when I graduated, I made a few more and then we stopped. And then I slowed down on them and I was actually able to repurpose them even a couple years ago because they still look good. They still made sense. They were evergreen because of the way that I was recording them. And it definitely expanded my brand.
Nice.
Chad, how do you go about creating content for your personal brand?
That's a great question. So before I get into that, I just want your listeners and viewers to know that the process of me building my personal brand has done a lot of wonderful things for myself and my family, and especially my daughters. I have twin daughters. They're 15, or they're about to be 15, and they just started high school. I've had the opportunity to travel the world. I've keynote spoke in Santiago, Chile, Moscow, almost every country in Europe, multiple times. And it's been amazing. If you really can dig deep and build your brand online, what it can do for you and your family and the people around you is amazing. And I thank God every day, pretty much. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But
yeah.
go ahead.
And I was going to say, I'm not even going to get into where you spoke, Melinda, because we don't have enough time for that. But yes.
I just got back from Cambodia. I was excited to hear him say that because I was like, I literally last week was in Cambodia training.
I've never done Asia. I've done every continent.
Asia's awesome. I've done China, Singapore, and Cambodia. Southeast Asia is amazing. You definitely should do it. The flight is long, but the people are warm and the food is amazing. So that's what
Moscow was interesting. So I was actually speaking in Germany and then had a gig in Moscow. So I flew from Germany to Moscow, so I didn't have to fly from the U.S. to Moscow. But since I served 10 and a half years in the U.S. Army, Russia made me jump through super hoops to get a visa. Yeah,
I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I want her to believe that. Yeah.
And for me, I think the first international trip for speaking was Istanbul, Turkey. They contacted me on LinkedIn because I had my LinkedIn profile optimized with keynote speaker, and they were looking for keynote speakers. They obviously dug down and took a look at my digital brand. And that's how I was able to have my trip to Turkey, and it was absolutely amazing. But what was very interesting about that speaking engagement is when I was on stage, they had an interpreter so that everyone listening to what I was saying right through their headphones. And sometimes, if you've been to any of my talks, I like to crack a couple jokes, right? You crack jokes, the interpreter then interprets it, and there's a delay in their response. So it really freaked me out because I'm like, okay, I just dropped a gym, haha, laugh. And then I go on and then they start laughing, right? And so that was definitely the most memorable speaking engagement I think I've had. But to all of your point, it all was based upon building that strong personal brand. It got us to that point, right? And I'm sure with you, Glenna, you were able to get clients and other opportunities based upon your personal brand. Tell us about that. Any wins that you can talk about with regard to your personal brand?
I have never had a speaker sheet. I've never had a speaker's deck. I should.
I can help you with that.
But every single opportunity that I've had has been word of mouth. I've had so many people contact me. The majority of people that contact me, I have to ask, like, how did you find me? And sometimes it's through social media. Sometimes it's through, I know somebody that knows you. I know somebody that follows you. I know somebody that talks about you. Again, when you're making videos and when you're talking to people, it feels like a conversation. It's one-sided, but it feels like a conversation. So people have met me. They've met my personality, and same, like one of the things that I had to learn really early on is that I don't have to look a certain way to be a therapist. Like when people think therapist, they think Freud, older white gentleman with glasses, and I'm none of that. can't even pretend to be any of that. And so I learned that authenticity actually goes a long way, and reaching out to people, being myself, and realizing like attracts like, people would contact me from all different walks of life. And like I said, I did something with, I think the Alameda County Mental Health, that was one where I still to this day, I have no idea. They had a headhunter that reached out to me, and I asked the headhunter, how did you know about me? And he was like, somebody gave me your name. Never did tell me who the somebody was, but just being out there producing content. Because as a therapist, one thing about therapy, no one can really say whether you're doing a good job. It's word of mouth, but I can't legally, I can't ask them, can you give me a review and tell people how great your therapy is? I can't record the session and post it and say, look, I really am really good at what I do. When the door closes, that's it. So my voice and my ability to talk and articulate and be personable and be a real person, it really is super important to me being able to even build my business.
Yeah. You know, one connecting thread between all of us on this podcast is we either are not afraid to do public speaking, or we've come over fear of public speaking. But there are plenty of people who are scared to death of public speaking, or even putting themselves out there personally, even though they want to so bad. What kind of advice would you give people who are afraid to take that leap for various reasons?
I can start. So maybe I'm the exception. I don't know. You guys tell me. But when I get on stage, I'm kind of angry and bullish and aggressive. And that's just how I do it. I attack it. I don't know if it's the Army in me. 10 and a half years in the Army, some stuff kind of sticks, right? But yeah, that's the approach I take. And it seems to work, and audiences seem to like it.
Yeah. What about you, Melinda?
I think it's about, who you want to project. Like I tell people all the time, Small Biz Lady is a character I play on the internet, right? And when I go out, I become her, right? I put on my cape, I get on stage, and I save the day. I fix businesses every day, right? And so I view it like that. Like I'm a doctor, I am giving people prescriptions to win. I don't view it as I'm speaking. I view it as I'm helping. And so because of that, I don't feel, I think I always feel a little bit of nerves right before, when they're introducing me. But man, when they put that mic in my hand and they put the light on me, forget it. Like I can crush a stage. But it's because it's about, I'm not pretending. I'm telling people what I know. I'm not telling people theory about it. And I've been doing it long enough. I tell people all the time, I've been through the fire, the wind, and the rain. So I can tell you about what it is to be on this journey we call entrepreneurship. And I think most people have good ideas. They just don't know how to run a business. And so I'm always about giving people information to try to protect them from some of these potholes that are out here that can give them a flat tire on any given day. And that's just how I look at it.